Survival became our personality. There are generations of people who never got the chance to meet themselves outside of survival. And I think about that often. What happens to a human being when fear lasts too long? Not for days, not for months, but for generations. Because survival does not end when the danger disappears. The body remembers it. History remembers. Families remember. And eventually, children inherit emotional patterns they had no part in creating. And I think after slavery, many African families entered survival mode, not just physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. People had to harden themselves to endure life, to survive systems, to survive loss, to survive humiliation, to survive instability. And when survival becomes necessary, softness starts to feel dangerous, so people adapt. A father becomes emotionally distant because survival taught him feelings slow you down. A mother becomes controlling because fear taught her control creates safety. Children become hyper-aware of everyone else's emotions because peace in the household depends on reading the room correctly. And slowly, adaptation becomes culture. Not all culture, but parts of it. The parts born from fear instead of freedom, and generations later people say, this is just who we are. Without asking, what created the behavior in the first place? Survival taught people to suppress themselves, to work constantly, to fear rest, to obey authority, to tolerate harmful relationships, to remain in environments that slowly destroy them. Because the nervous system learned that endurance is safer than uncertainty, and eventually, people stop asking themselves, what feels healthy? They ask, what helps me survive? There's a difference, a big difference, very, very big difference. Because survival and living are not the same thing. You can survive something for years, while your spirit slowly disappears inside of it. And many people call that strength. But I think true strength is remaining connected to your humanity in a world that benefits from your disconnection. And that is difficult. Especially when society rewards survival identities. The overworker is praised. The emotionally unavailable person is called independent. The self-abandoning person is called loyal. The exhausted mother is called strong. The child who never speaks up is called respectful. And the person who finally says, this is hurting me, is often treated like the problem. Because awareness disrupts systems. When someone begins choosing themselves, people who benefited from their lack of boundaries start feeling uncomfortable, not because the person became harmful, but because the survival dynamic changed. And I think many of us have confused adaptation for identity. Some people are not naturally cold, they adapted to disappointment. Some people are not naturally anxious, their nervous systems never learned safety. Some people are not naturally people pleasers. They learned love could disappear if others become unhappy with them. When I realized this, I stopped seeing human beings as simply good or bad. I started seeing patterns, defense mechanisms, unhealed survival strategies. People trying to protect themselves with the only emotional tools they were ever given. And that does not excuse harm, but it explains behavior. An explanation creates awareness. Awareness gives choice. Choice creates possibility. Maybe that is why so many people fear self-awareness. Because once you see the pattern, you can never, ever pretend you are powerless inside of it. You begin asking harder questions. Who would I be if survival was not my main identity? What parts of me were created from fear? What would softness feel like if my body truly believed it was safe? And maybe healing is not becoming perfect. Maybe healing is slowly teaching the nervous system that life is no longer a constant emergency. Maybe healing is allowing yourself to exist beyond endurance, to rest, to feel, to choose differently. To return to the self that survival buried but never fully destroyed. Because beneath adaptation, there is still a human being, waiting, breathing, remembering. And I think that version of us deserves to live too.